All right, well, I am showing 9:04 on the clock, so we will go ahead and kick this off. I want to thank everyone for taking the time to join us this morning for this month's installment of our Max Minute series. We are very grateful to have you and to have our presenters and speakers today. So I want to start off, of course, by thanking our anchor sponsors. If I can get the screen to advance. Oh, one more. First is my office and agency, WorkSource Georgia, along with WorkSource Metro Atlanta, the Department of Human Services, Atlanta Career Rise, Goodwill of North Georgia, the Metro Atlanta Chamber, BDI, and first but certainly not last, First Step Staffing. We obviously couldn't do the work that Max is able to do without these sponsors, so we are very thankful for them and all they do to support our efforts. For everyone, I am Jamie Jordan, so I'm the Director of Programs and Business Services at the Technical College System of Georgia, which is also we are the office that oversees WorkSource Georgia. And so I'm excited to be today's host for today's session, but I will now turn the mic over to Daniela Perry. She is going to be today's moderator to introduce our panelists and our speakers.
Thanks so much, Jamie. Really appreciate it. Good morning. My name is Daniela Pierre. I serve as the Vice President of the Georgia Chamber Foundation for the Georgia Chamber of Commerce. We are so excited to have the team from DeCal here this morning. We've got Bentley Ponder, Laura Wagner, and Jill OMeara to really give us the full scope of what's going on around two-generation solutions. They've got some news that's hot off the presses with recent grant announcements. So we will turn it over to you all, but thank you again for being with us this morning. We're so excited to hear what y'all have to share.
All right, and thank you so much, Daniela, for having us, and again for Laura and Jill. It's always a pleasure and exciting for the three of us to present together. So we're all part of the same division, and we've been working on these projects for a while, so we really like sharing. And Laura's going, if you go to the next slide, please, Laura. All right, I think it's always helpful just to give a little bit of an overview of what our presentation entails. So we've gone, we'll go through each introduction. I'm the Deputy Commissioner for Quality Innovations and Partnerships, and Laura is the Director for the Community Outreach and Partnerships unit, which is part of the division, and then Jill is our community coordinator. I always get your title just a little bit wrong, Jill. So when we get to you, I will say, and I should have written it down, but it's changed a couple times. And anyway, she oversees our community coordinators and just a lot of our Twogen and just a lot of our collaborative work. So we'll go through kind of what Twogen means, at least in terms of the DeCal perspective, and really how we got started with our initial Parents and Children Thriving Together grant. Jill's going to talk about some of our current Twogen innovation grants, which started as a result of that initial grant, and we're actually being able to continue forward with both CCDF funding and PDG, which is our preschool development grant funding. Very timely, we recently announced some 2021 community and Twogen innovation grant opportunities. Those are actually being scored and have been due in March. And so we'll talk a little bit about what that entails. Daniela teased a bit of this announcement that we didn't know whether we were going to be able to share or not, but that was released yesterday. And then, these are some of the Twogen efforts that are within the Quality Innovations and Partnerships division, but we actually have a lot of other Twogen efforts that go on within DeCal. And so we have a quick slide just to highlight some of those that are in the other divisions, and then of course time for Q&A. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to my friend and colleague, Laura, who will kick us off with the content.
Thanks so much, Bentley, and thanks to everyone on the call for joining us, and thanks, of course, to Jamie and Daniela for the opportunity to share a bit about our work. So we wanted to start briefly in discussing what a Twogen approach is. It is, of course, an approach that builds family well-being by intentionally and simultaneously serving the child and parent at the same time. So you often hear of approaches that are focused just on the child or just on the parent, but we are really working towards building a whole family approach with our Twogen innovation grants, and many of our colleagues within our agency are also focused on shifting our traditional program service models to more of a two-gen approach. We certainly see that in our CAPS program, but we're starting to see it in other programs that our agency administers as well. So it's important to keep in mind that this whole family approach is really at the heart of the work. So how did DECAL get involved in shifting its focus and shifting its work? In 2016, we were awarded a $90,000 two-year grant from the National Governors Association and the Center for Law and Social Policy. And so we were one of only 5 states to receive that prestigious award. But I think we've said many times as an internal team that it really was less about the money that came along with this work and more about the opportunity to collaborate and think innovatively with key partners at the system level. Many of the partners included representatives from the Technical College System of Georgia, the University System of Georgia, the Department of Labor. Of course, the governor's office was at the heart of the work, and we also had partnership and collaboration from our state's Head Start Association and our Head Start Collaboration Office. Our key outcomes for this particular grant, which was called Parents and Children Thriving Together in Georgia, were to increase cross-agency coordination, to provide professional learning on Twogen, not just for system level, state level representatives that were working to plan together, but also professional learning on Twogen for frontline staff. We held summits in Macon and Atlanta for frontline staff from our agency as well as other state agencies to talk about how we might serve the same families together in an intentional way. We also had the opportunity to pilot new and expand on existing Twogen strategies. We piloted our Twogen innovation grants for the first time as a result of this NGA and CLASP funding. And we shifted that over after that first funding cycle to a more sustainable funding source, which is our Child Care Development Fund. And Jill will talk with you all about that in just a moment. We also increased our Twogen evaluation efforts. We started with a landscape analysis conducted by the Georgia Center for Nonprofits. And we also made possible some innovative new studies at the campus level, starting at Athens Technical College, where we really got to explore the student-parent experience a bit more deeply. And then lastly, we were focused on pursuing policy changes to then scale up successful Twogen strategies. It's important to note at the same time as we had received this PACT grant, the Child Care and Parent Services Program, or CAPS, moved from DFACS over to DECAL. So we were able to think about a whole family approach within our CAPS program, particularly in the family support unit of CAPS. Excuse me. So our Twogen innovation grants are really exciting opportunities that were, again, first made available through this PACT grant and now have continued on for a few years afterwards. There are 2 types of Twogen innovation grants. They didn't start out with 2 types. It evolved from this capacity building opportunity and building networks at the local level and really exploring what a Twogen approach would look like at the community. But as the work grew, we saw the need to delineate the opportunities between capacity building and implementation funding. So you'll see that here. But I think the most critical aspect of these grants is that we require child serving and adult serving partners to work together on these grants. I think that that is the most important note to take away from this, is that structurally, we require these partners to collaborate and work together. So a child care program or a Head Start grantee or another organization that's focused specifically on serving the early education needs of young children are required to work with either a University System of Georgia institution or a Technical College System of Georgia institution or otherwise to make sure that those partners are aligned in how they're supporting the same families all at once. So we are really pleased that we've been able to continue these opportunities past just the initial PACT grant term. I think at this point, I am handing things over to Jill to talk about the growth and expansion of these innovation grants.
Thank you, Laura. And I'm Jill OMeara, as Bentley mentioned, and he is correct. My title has changed a couple of times. It is the Community Partnerships and Projects Manager. Good morning, everyone. It's great to be here with you all. So with the funding from our PACT grant, we were excited to offer non-competitive 2-generation innovation grants to 3 communities. 2 of these grants were located in the early education empowerment zones. Those were identified through our Race to the Top Early Learning Challenge grant. And those were Clark County, and the grantee was Family Connection Communities and Schools in partnership with Athens Technical College. And Macon-Bibb County was the other grantee with United Way of Central Georgia in partnership with Central Georgia Technical College. Our third grantee was Quality Care for Children in partnership with Clayton State University and Atlanta Technical College. These grants helped us at DeKalb to learn a lot about how communities could be successful. In 2019 and 2020, we selected 4 communities through a competitive grant process. And round 2 of these 2-generation innovation grants were funded by the Child Care Development Fund. The capacity building grantees with funding of $15,000 each were Southern Crescent Technical College and Community Foundation of Northwest Georgia. And the implementation funding grantees were Central Georgia Technical College and Quality Care for Children. They expanded their existing 2-generational approach with funding of $35,000 each. Next slide, please. So for the 2020-2021 funding cycle of 2-generation innovation grants, we decided to reduce the funding amounts as you will see, just a little bit, because we learned that many of the proposed projects in the previous rounds didn't require as much funding as they had initially anticipated. We know those partnerships are valuable, but they were almost priceless. So for the capacity building grants, our current grantees are awarded $10,000 each. So for Gordon State College, located in Lamar County, is focused on implementing a family-friendly campus toolkit while developing a plan for building campus-wide access to or for high-quality early learning resources for student parents and their success. For Heard County Board of Education, our next grantee, is obviously located in the heart of Heard County, is focused on creating parent focus groups. Obviously, with the COVID restrictions, they're doing these virtually to gather information on parent goals for obtaining a GED, post-secondary options, workforce training, and access to childcare. Parents are being recruited from their Baby Braves program, Head Start, elementary schools, and the focus group findings are being shared with their 2-gen leadership team, consisting of those child serving partners, as well as adult serving partners from University of West Georgia and West Georgia Technical College. Our next grantee for the capacity building is Black Child Development Institute, Atlanta. And this organization is focused on implementing the Powerful Families program. Families for this program have children who are enrolled in YMCA of Metro Atlanta, Sheltering Arms Early Education Centers, and Georgia's Pre-K in Fulton County. This program is in partnership with United Way of Greater Atlanta and Atlanta Technical College. They work together to offer services to families on parenting skills, GED prep, interview skills, resume writing, and so much more. And I can tell you that I have sat in on one of these virtual sessions for the Powerful Families program, and they've done a great job setting the tone for learning, but they also have a little bit of fun along the way too. And the parents keep coming back, so they are enjoying it. So for the next hour for Kennesaw State University located in Cobb County, this grantee is focused on implementing their student parent ambassador program as a peer mentoring approach that will impact both ends of the community building pipeline for high quality childcare providers and post-secondary education workforce development. This program connects individuals with resources to be successful as a student parent, such as resources available at the university and at many other organizations, including family, social service, and health programs. And finally, our Community Foundation of Northwest Georgia grantee located in Whitfield County. This is their second year as a two-generation innovation grantee, but this is their first time as an implementation funding grantee. One of the projects they have been focused on is creating a resource center for student parents at Georgia Northwestern Technical College. This resource center is family friendly. There are supplies available for student parents to ensure that they're successful in their classes, such as computers, printers, etc. And through outside partnerships, the resource center is stocked with food and pantry items for the whole family, such as diapers. Due to COVID-19 restrictions, of course, the resource center is open by appointment only. Next slide, please. So when I look at this photo, it reminds me, of course, how much I miss traveling, interacting with friends, colleagues, and of course, our grantees for in-person meetings. This photo was taken at one of our 2019-2020 Twogen quarterly meetings. This is Suzanne Harvin and Brett Copeland in the photo here, one with Community Foundation of Northwest Georgia and Brett Copeland with Central Georgia Technical College. They're obviously reporting out on their Twogen efforts. So one of our lessons learned, leadership is key. As mentioned, the first objective for our grantees is to convene a Twogen collaborative team. And through our work with the technical colleges and universities, they've shared that it's important to include in-house leaders for the adult serving categories, such as student affairs, student populations, and our student pops, and even the president. A common thread we found is leadership matters. Leaders help to set a vision for partners and communities with a collective understanding of why this is important. Next is an all call for student parent programs. For technical colleges and universities, we found it's a good idea to schedule a meeting or maybe even create a flyer to distribute via email with other program chairs to find out what faculty and staff already have in place to support student parents. It's critical to the overall success and to ensure that they're not duplicating efforts there. When looking for staff buy-in, it's a good idea to offer Twogen informational sessions to keep the faculty and staff engaged. We know people are stretched right now, people are having a really hard time. Asking staff to buy into Twogen shouldn't be about asking them to do one more thing. It should be really about a way to accelerate and strengthen the work they're already doing. Informational sessions are also a good way to share successes and challenges that student parents are facing. Lesson learned here is also to never assume that what people think of what a Twogen approach looks like. And so keeping everyone informed will make the progress much smoother. Partnerships are essential for success. It is important to note that while we at DCAL have a goal in mind for Georgia's Twogen approach, we're looking for innovation. Each community has different needs, and how they choose to apply a Twogen approach should be fitting for children and families in their community. However, we do ask grantees to be intentional, as Laura mentioned, about bringing adult serving and child serving organizations together. We encourage that all partners collaborate with a very clear understanding in the beginning as a lesson learned, and to know how the collaborative will work together to support their Twogen approach. And lastly, while we ask grantees at from DeKalb to complete a monthly performance report and of course a final end of the grant final report, those are helpful, but we soon realized that we didn't have a formal evaluation in place for these grants. Lesson learned: for the next round of grantees, there'll be a formal evaluation in place from start to finish. So with that, I will turn it over to Bentley to tell you more about our community impact grants.
All right, thanks, Jill, and I really appreciate that and all your just expertise. And I know you miss getting out there and being with the grantees, so hopefully soon, fingers crossed. So building on what we've learned from the Twogen innovation grants that Jill talked about, we have expanded those and created what we're calling, I guess, a bucket of community impact grant opportunities. And we're able to do this because in 2019, the state was funded for a preschool development birth through 5 renewal grant. And that, I think we were awarded in December 2019, and it actually built on a development grant that we had received the year before. And, you know, because of the pandemic, some of the projects have been delayed just a bit, but through that funding, we have expanded our Twogen innovation grants. So you'll see here that we have 3 distinct opportunities in this bucket. And the first one is a repeat of our Twogen innovation grants. And we have made a few changes, such as increasing the evaluation efforts with these grants, but through our PDG opportunity, we're able to continue offering those and actually expand the number that we're offering. We've also, building on some work that we've done in the past, offering communities trauma responsive care grants. So these are grants to help communities better understand the impacts of trauma and then ensure that they have appropriate responses. And of course, we all know how timely that's going to be as we emerge from the pandemic. And then we created just what I would call a brand new grant opportunity. They're called community transformation grants. They're actually funded at up to $75,000 and will go for 18 months. And I'll talk a little bit more about these. And as you'll see in just a second, that the application or the first step for all these are due this month. So these are pretty hot off the press. And Laura, Jill, and I have actually been working this week on reviewing some of these grants. So this presentation is really timely. And just to build on kind of what Laura talked about too, the key part of this is that it requires the creation of a collaborative team to implement the work. And that's only not for implementation, but to help communities in sustainability as well. All right, next slide. So just to kind of highlight what are the purpose of these buckets of grants. Well, one, we know so much innovation goes on at the community level, and the PDG grant is just an opportunity for us to further support community level efforts. On that note too, we also want to increase opportunities for community collaboration. So we know that collaboration is something we talk about a lot. I think many of us could talk about, the positive and when it really works, but we can also talk about how difficult it can be. And so we hope these grants provide an umbrella for that collaboration. We also, want to give communities opportunities to have their own innovations. And, as I said before, so much innovation happens at that local level. And this is a way to provide funding, provide support, provide resources for that innovation to happen. Jill mentioned, one of the lessons learned is, it's research and evaluation can't be an afterthought. And not that it ever was with any of our grants, but the PDG big grant gave us an opportunity to really formally, have a formal evaluation partner with these grants and expand those evaluation efforts. And then again, we want these grants to be blueprints, to be things that we can scale to other communities or scale statewide. So, in a nutshell, these provide opportunities for communities to collaborate, to innovate, and then for the state to learn so we can scale up. All right, next slide. So with our Twogen innovation grants, again, the same thing that we saw with the previous grants. We have the capacity building and the implementation funding. These applications were due March 1st. We have a team of independent reviewers. Jill, Laura, and I are not part of those reviewers, and they're being reviewed as we speak. And so I know there's a meeting, I think next week or the week after, to review all of the different scores, and we hope to announce those no later than April 1st, and those grants will be funded from May 1st to April 30th. And as I mentioned before, we're expanding those, and so we expect to fund 9 grants, 5 capacity building, and 4 implementation funding. All right, next slide. And then we have our trauma responsive care grant. This helps communities identify the impact of trauma on children, caregivers, and families, and then helps them integrate responsive practices to support resiliency. These grants are also offered at $10,000 each. And the same timeline for these grants were with the Twogen innovation grants, and we expect to fund 9 of these. And I should say too that we've changed the name, but we did offer a version of these grants previously, so we were able to incorporate those lessons learned into this opportunity. Next slide. And then we have our community transformation grant. So this is something brand new. I remember Laura and I and Jill and Susan Adams, who's our deputy commissioner that oversees the total PDG grant, sat, either in Zoom, or I think Susan and I actually sat in a conference room one day and really thought about what would be something innovative that we could use this PDG grant opportunity to address. And so we came up with the community transformation grants. Again, they're for $75,000. The grants are funded for 18 months, and we expect them to be funded from July 1st to December 1st, 2022. What I will say is that part of the PDG grant requires states to do a comprehensive needs assessment. Based on our needs assessment findings, we had 9 different, I would say, subject or topic areas from that. And so they include, supporting dual language learners, increasing access for infants and toddlers, addressing community food security. And so what we're asking communities to do is to pick one of those 9 and then design an innovative project around that. We're doing the application process for these just a little bit differently. So potential grantees, they submitted a letter of interest to us, and that was due on March 15th, 2021. We are doing an initial screening, a reading of those now. We want to see geographically where those grants line up. We also want to see how well they encompass the 9 different areas that were findings from the needs assessment. Then they will be scored independently from us. So we'll have a team that will do a formal score of those letters of interest. Then from that, we will select a group to submit a formal application. From those formal applications, we will select 6 different communities, and they will be funded for 18 months. And I didn't know if I could list the number of applications we had, or, if we, until we get further in the scoring process. But let me just say, we are really excited about the interest, and it kind of blew me away, the number of letters of interest we got this week. So it was higher than anticipated, and it was just fun to say we've got a pleasant problem, that we've got more letters of interest to score than we had anticipated. So I think it shows that communities are excited about these opportunities, that they want to they want opportunities for this collaboration. They want to be able to do these innovate, and so I'm hoping that maybe we'll be able to even fund more as the grant goes on. So again, really excited. All right, next slide. And Laura, this is me turning it back to you for our big announcement.
All right, thanks, Bentley. So while we're talking about one big 18-month grant that we're issuing to 6 community partners, we were just awarded, co-awarded with TCSG, our own 18-month grant from the Aspen Institute, Ascend at the Aspen Institute. DECAL and TCSG have just been awarded a $150,000 18-month grant to further propel our Twogen approaches in the agencies that we lead. Through this work, we will institute Twogen leadership teams, not only at the state level, but also at the local level within 3 pilot communities. We will be in Atlanta, as well as in Cobb County and in Valdosta. And we will also be working with partners at SNAP and WIC and with TANF. So we're going to be exploring our policy barriers and programmatic barriers that need to be eliminated so that student parents have an easier time navigating and getting the supports that they need so very much. So we're really excited about this opportunity to deepen our knowledge of this student parent experience and learn how we can continue to improve our planning and our policy making within the various agencies where we work. So we're thrilled about this news, and this is hot off the presses as of this week. I think this is our final slide before going into question and answer session. So we just wanted to leave with some of the additional Twogen activities that DECAL leads in our agency. We have an early Head Start childcare partnership. It is not a common thing that a state agency is actually a Head Start grantee. So this is a really interesting and innovative piece of our work where we work with childcare providers and family childcare providers to implement the early Head Start model within various family childcare learning home environments. And as many of you all may already know, Head Start is well known for a whole family approach. We also have birth to 8 collaboratives across the state. Jill's team leads these birth to 8 collaboratives and their work. We've just, during the pandemic, reinstituted regional birth to 8 collaborative groups where we have representatives from adult serving and child serving organizations coming together to learn about how we can mutually improve the experience of early learning across the state of Georgia. Bentley touched on the Birth to 5 renewal grant that's supporting our various community grants at this moment in time. And I'll turn it back over to Bentley in a moment, but I can't say again how important it was that the CAPS program did transition over to DECAL at the same time that we were awarded that PACT grant. Our family support unit within CAPS has been focused on family-centered coaching. Of course, hearing from parents and from families as to what their goals are and thinking with families as their partners and collaborators as to how to help families meet their own unique individual goals. We also now have activity requirements that allow for enrollment in associate's degree programs as well as bachelor's degree programs. That's another really critical policy change that DECAL has put into place so that student parents who are also otherwise eligible can be enrolled in those activities rather than just traditional work requirements. Bentley, I'll hand it back over to you.
Sure. Just so, to kind of round this out, for many years now, we've had a summer transition program in our, that sits as part of our Georgia's pre-K program. There's a summer transition program for rising pre-K, so for children who will be going into pre-K, and then a summer transition program for rising K. And there is a family component to that. So each program has a staff person that works with those families, works with those children in terms of transitioning into the next year's program. We also, as part of our PD Birth Through 5 grant, we have created family ambassadors that are across the state. And so I know that we're in round 3 of those family ambassadors, and it's been really impressive. And I know, Jill, you've done some work with our family ambassadors of how many, first of all, family ambassadors we've had, and how well we're able to incorporate them into many of our outside activities, and just how much that program's grown. And I know that your team and that team, they've really been able to work together. And then I'll just close by saying, Twogen, it's not just a program that we have at DeKalb, it's part of our overall strategic plan. And our Commissioner Amy Jacobs, co-chairs the Children's Cabinet, and I know that that's one of their strategic areas of focus in their plan too. So I just want to say that it's not just within our division at DeKalb, it's not just at DeKalb, it is something that we see statewide. And Jamie, I don't know that if we mentioned this enough through the presentation, but TCSG has been a critical partner with us throughout all of this Twogen work, and we're just excited to continue it. And as you can probably tell, I'm really excited to see, what those community transformation grants yield. I think we're going to learn a lot from there. So with that, Daniela, we can go to if there's any questions or next steps or.
Yeah, absolutely. Too, and everyone, just a reminder that you can use the Q&A or chat function. And Jamie would love to hear if you've got some things, but I'll just kick it off. Again, thank you to Bentley, Laura, and Jill. I think this work is so fascinating and really cool to focus on that whole family that really enables success. So I was wondering if you'll kind of just share, I know you've just gotten the most recent, grants and going through all of them, but if y'all are kind of starting to see any trends in terms of maybe transitions with what families are now kind of asking for in terms of support, what challenges that communities are looking to take on, are y'all seeing any differences in previous grant awards, and just how workforce developers can be help y'all in these efforts as we continue to grow the work in the state?
Yeah, I mean, we did do some focus groups with families earlier in the year as part of our PDG piece. We are, I think if there's anything that has come from the pandemic, it's just the importance of childcare and the important support that childcare and early education can bring. And so I think whatever supports we can offer to families in being able to access not only just childcare, but high quality childcare, then I think, that's just paramount. And so many of the other supports that we talked about with these grants and everything relate to families having that stable, high access to that stable, high quality childcare. One of the things that has been interesting that's not part of this, but our research team has done a lot of analysis of attendance data. So throughout the pandemic, we have still done our licensing visits. We've just done them virtually. But when you do a licensing visit, you're able to look at attendance at the program. And so we've been able to compare attendance at a program pre-pandemic and then now during the pandemic. And what we're seeing, I mean, and I know this was in our board meeting a couple of weeks ago, is that, attendance has dropped as expected. Workforce needs haven't dropped as much. And when I say workforce, I'm talking about the workforce at childcare programs. So let's just say that, and I may have the figures a little bit wrong, but attendance has decreased 26%. Well, the workforce has only decreased 13%. So childcare providers still have high costs, but they're not having as high as attendance as they once had. So you can imagine the impact there. The other thing from that is it's actually been, the decrease has been less for infants and toddlers than it has been for preschoolers. So families with infants and toddlers really do need access to that high quality care. And I think anyone who has worked from home with an infant and toddler, and Laura, I'm going to just mention you because Laura actually is in that group there with Kate.
Yeah.
Then I think you can certainly see see those needs. So again, Daniela, to kind of go back to your question, I think we're just seeing still that need for access to high quality care, and we're hoping that all these supports contribute to that. And Laura and Jill, I don't know if you have anything else you want to add or anything else you're seeing with your work.
I think it might be of interest to this group that we, with the transformation grants, invited organizations to apply for one of 9 focus areas. And those focus areas, I can't remember all of them just right offhand, but many of them did relate to access to high quality early childhood education in rural areas of Georgia, or special considerations and access issues that are faced by dual language learners across the state of Georgia. There was another focus area that was tied to food insecurity. And I think that we're going to see some very interesting and innovative approaches that come from the field. So it might be interesting to update this group later on once that work has been, once those grants have been awarded and once that work really gets underway. And then I think we'll also learn from not only the Twogen innovation grants that are awarded this cycle, but also the trauma responsive care grants, and how communities are working together to support the mental health needs of children and families right now on the heels of the pandemic.
Absolutely. And I think that's such a critical piece as everyone tries to figure out what normal looks like nowadays. And I think that that's going to be such a benefit to so many individuals, especially as we know that the impacts of COVID have been harder on families that have lower wage positions and often minority groups as well. So I want to be honest about kind of how we need to address different kinds of groups in our population to really get families back to a good place so we can grow our economy and create new opportunities for folks.
Daniela, I want to just, if that's okay, I just would like to just bring in Jill just for a second, because her team of community coordinators have actually had networks of providers that they've met. And I know you might have some insight of what they're hearing from the providers who are hearing from their families.
Sorry, just trying to get unmuted. Yeah, definitely. So the community coordinators have began to host child care engagement networks because they really do want to hear from the families. They really want to hear directly from the child care providers, and we want to serve as that resource directly to them. So they host regional meetings. As Bentley mentioned, the community coordinators, there's one in each of DCAL's 6 administrative regions. So the regions are rather large, but bringing those groups together to even lean on each other, the child care programs, providers, for them to lean on one another is important within that region, and just helping them to figure out a way to balance, helping families to balance the work-life situation that we're all under. But it's great work to connect with those providers, and the coordinators are doing an extraordinary job by providing resources to them, not only from our organization about programs and services, but other organizations related to many other things. Maybe it's mental health trainings that they may could attend, or even resources that they may need. So just listening to them, I think is so very important at this time.
Absolutely. And Jill, I wanted to see too, if y'all have heard from, families just about the importance of, for adults to have kind of this access to all these different programs and new things that y'all are offering. I think it's so important to really think about how that offers them new opportunities to pursue post-secondary or a new job opportunity to upskill, reskill, kind of what that looks like. I was wondering if y'all had some takeaways or anecdotes from folks that you've heard from your community coordinators and other events y'all been able to host in person or virtual about just some kind of takeaways that adults have that are participating in these programs.
I think one of the most exciting things about the Twogen innovation grants, with that kind of forced partnership between adult serving and child serving organizations, is that we do continue to hope that our child care programs that are part of these local grant sites will see their parents as potential student parents, or will have connected to workforce investment boards or other workforce supporting organizations in their communities to advance opportunities for families. So it's interesting to think of childcare programs as being somewhat of a recruitment site for institutions of higher learning. But that's a key element of this work and one that we're really proud of.
Absolutely. We've got some good questions in the chat and Q&A. So I want to first start with Tim's question, asking what could Max do to help support this two-generation work, especially as employers are looking to contract with, employees for services, and how can we kind of be a bridge with different technical colleges system, of course, university system as well, and how can different individual organizations as workforce development providers or members of the business community as a whole, how can they kind of contribute to this two-generation work and support what y'all are doing?
I mean, I think one thing is it sounds kind of basic, but when we roll out, all these different grants and we award them, each one requires community collaboratives. And so what we see with these community collaboratives a lot are your, usual players, your nonprofits, your family connection partnerships. But I think a lot of these community collaboratives would really benefit from a lot of business voice on there. So I would say, it's a good way for us to let you know who the grantees are and then work with your members to, encourage them to be part of these collaboratives. I think would be one easy way to do this. Laura and Jill, I don't know if y'all have some other ideas there too.
I was going along that same route that you just did. And specifically, when we ask the 2GN grantees to build their collaborative team, one of them for the adult serving, of course, is the technical college, but also the Workforce Development Board. And so having Bentley mention that, we certainly can share the contact information for the current grantees, but also as we begin to have our new grantees and keep in touch that way. So we're really excited about doing that. So they're looking for as many resources and information and voices as for support as they possibly can find. So.
Absolutely. And I know we at the Georgia Chamber, and I know that Metro Atlanta Chamber as well will be happy to kind of connect and serve as a resource there. But I know there's lots of providers on this call as well that I'm sure would love to be a resource. So we can make sure you can follow up with information about, the current grants too, as that information becomes available. We've got another question too. I know that, Bentley, you talked about, the extreme stress that's been put on childcare workers over the last year. I was wondering, what y'all are kind of seeing industry-wide in terms of better pay for childcare workers and kind of how we continue to develop that workforce pipeline. So we have a really strong supply that are able to offer this high-quality, affordable childcare for families across the state.
Yeah, I saw that question and I was so glad that it was asked. And let me just say too, many of our childcare workers are part of that low wage workforce until we, and I mean we, like as the global, we, figure out how to best address that. It's really hard to increase that access to quality and raise quality. So that is something that we have got to continue to work on. And I wish I could say that I had a lot of answers with this. I don't, but it is paramount to quality to that is addressed. That being said, we were able, so the agency has received a fair amount, a pretty large amount of funding from the different stimulus acts that have been passed in relation to COVID. And so one of the things that we're doing that we're rolling out now is providing those bonuses. So the same bonuses that our K through 12 teachers are getting, our child care staff, not just child care teachers, but our child care staff will also be eligible for. And we are figuring out how to issue payments directly to 65,000 staff that are part of private businesses. But that's been announced and that should be rolling out in the next couple of weeks. We've also found that from a research standpoint, one of the more beneficial things we've done, and we've done it twice, is our economic impact study, because that provides some really critical data that we see not only our commissioners use, but also advocacy groups use. And it's just been something that has been, really successful. So we are commissioning a third economic impact study. In fact, I have a meeting on that later today where we'll be able to also, quantify some of the economics that's important to quantify and talk about wages and where those wages where we need to do more work, but it also will give us some data around the impact of the pandemic and then, where we are with the recovery. It's going to be a little bit of a longer project, so we can measure that later piece, but we are moving forward with that. We also have some other economic research projects too that, to help us better understand so we can better address. But I was really glad to see that question. And I think that's when you're talking about the stress and the importance of childcare, you have to talk about the wage issue, in my opinion.
Absolutely. And so glad to hear that they've got those bonuses coming. I know they're so well deserved, and hopefully we can get a lot more for them as well. I can't imagine just kind of what the last year's looked like for them. I wanted to see, I know y'all talked about this new work with the Aspen Institute, which is so exciting. I think, we'll find so many really good findings from that. But kind of looking at the future, how are y'all envisioning this potentially evolving? And, I think obviously the options are endless, but if there are specific targets y'all are thinking about in terms of how this two-generation work evolves and changes.
Yeah, Laura, do you have? I mean, I know we're really excited about the Aspen grant, and one of the things that's part of this new grant is piloting more of our, our cross agency and family councils at the local level. So I know that we'll be partnering with the TCSG school, childcare programs, and we have different really specific areas where we'll be creating those family councils. Because one of the things that I think, is so important with two-gen work, but is actually one of the harder parts to always incorporate with your research, is to make sure you have that representative family voice. And so I think, that'll be one of the things that we're really going to address with this Aspen grant, and then hopefully we can roll out statewide. We're doing better with that. We can survey teachers, we can survey directors, we can do all that, but sometimes in getting that family voice is actually a little bit more challenging. Laura, anything you would add?
So I'll say we learn a lot from these types of technical assistance opportunities from, national and world-renowned experts in the field. We also learn a lot from our state level, system level partners and our local partners, of course. Something that I've heard discussed, that is just kind of a pie in the sky, huge, but kind of idealistic notion is streamlined eligibility requirements and streamlined eligibility processes. We've discussed that as being just shoot for the moon idea that, if we were to bring together partners from our sister agencies, especially with SNAP and TANF, to consider eligibility requirements that might be shared across programs and application processes that may be a bit easier for families to navigate. So that might be a place to go in the future.
Absolutely. I think sometimes the paperwork just seems so intimidating that folks don't kind of know where to start. So I think that's certainly aspirational. And I know that, we'd all love to be a part of it as much as we can be helpful in that way. Jamie, I wanted to turn it over to you just for any last thoughts from TCSG and then to kind of close this out this morning.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will pull up because I know there's some announcements. So I'm going to share my screen again. I can get this to work. Let's see here. All right. Stay on the screen for me if you don't mind. First of all, I do want to thank our panelists. I echo everything that's been said. If there's one thing that I have learned during my now 8 years in workforce development, it is how key childcare is to every piece of both training and then placement within employment. I think it's one of those issues like transportation, like healthcare, that oftentimes may not at the policy level be associated with workforce development, but they are so keenly integrated that if you don't look at these issues, then you're wasting your time as you try to develop effective workforce and training strategies for the state. And we see especially childcare, because oftentimes it is one of the most expensive of those that we talk about of supportive services. It's one that can be overlooked, and one that, providing adequate support can be challenging. And I know it's one that we as a workforce system have prioritized, and we are blessed to have strong partners like DeKalb in the state who are working so hard to not only provide that support, but to not just provide childcare itself, but quality childcare is key. And that's what, for us, as we look at a long-term talent pipeline, it is so essential that, children in our state have access to that quality education foundation in the very beginning to set them up for success for the next, 15, 20, 30 years to come. And I think that is one piece that's often overlooked in the education and workforce discussion as well. So thank you all for this work, and especially the work you've done with Twogen and others as we've worked with you guys over the years. Y'all have been a great partner, and it is such an important view that we have to take when we look at this work. So again, we appreciate you, and as always, stand really willing and ready to help any way we can. As we close up, just a few announcements for us. First of all, we always encourage you, if you have any other colleagues or partners that you want to get them involved in Max, we definitely encourage you to please do so. This link that'll be provided in the presentation afterward will get you straight to the website to where they can sign up. There's a testimonial here you can see of the impact of Max and the resources that are provided through the network. So please spread the word, continue to help us integrate our workforce and education partners across the region, across the state, as we work to try to make sure our workforce and education systems are aligned to better serve our citizens and our employers. A few announcements or upcoming events. The next Max Talks event, which will be in partnership with Piedmont Healthcare and Wellstar of North Fulton, will take place on March 24th at 11:30 a.m. We have the next Max Academy session, which will be on IT alphabet soup. That is Tuesday, March 30th at 1 p.m. And then obviously next month's Max Minutes, which will be on youth work experience, something near and dear to my heart and our office's heart, will be Friday, April 9th, again at 9 a.m. If you ever have ideas or topics for future, sessions, please, by all means, shoot an email to the email address you see on the screen to share those ideas, so the team here at Max can help us give you the content that you're looking for to help you in your work. And with that, again, we want to thank all of our sponsors that we mentioned at the beginning, our anchor sponsors, who, without them, this work couldn't be possible. They help bring this network into creation and keep it into support. So we are very thankful for everyone you see on the screen. And that is all we have for today. If there's any other comments or questions, if not, we definitely appreciate you, and we thank you for an hour of your time today, and look forward to seeing you again soon.
Thank you again, Bentley, Laura, and Jill. So appreciate your
Absolutely.
time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you all. Fantastic information. Thank you.
Good seeing you.
Great to be with you. Thank you so much.